Hey, I'm sorry for the long delay between videos. It's been tough. Life's been really busy, and honestly, the drive to sit down has been just lacking between working 50 hours a week, finding time to work out, preparing for auditions, doing a script read. Just life has been chaotic, and that's not even finding time to socialize or play D&D or just be a human. So videos have kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. The thing is in the last 2.5 months, I have written 4 different videos. I shot 3 of them, and I always get to the editing part, and that's when I tend to go, okay, this isn't as good as I was hoping it would be. This is kind of dragging. This isn't what I want. And indecision and ADHD just kind of stop me. But one of the things, like when I get to working on things, is I like music. I like having things to listen to. And when I have a lot of overtime at work, I really like having an audiobook. And I find it just fascinating to listen to Stephen King or whatever I'm feeling at the moment. And lately, I've really been listening to the audiobooks by Travis McNichol and Dunstan McMillan, I believe are their names, who did the Taking Shape books and the book on Freddy vs. Jason Slash of the Titans. So I'm listening to the audiobook of Taking Shape 2, the unmade Halloween sequels, and there were a lot in there that I would have loved, but there were some that I absolutely would have hated. And it got me thinking about all the different horror franchises. How eventually every horror movie gets that really awful one. That one that like 90% of the fans would say is easily the worst. And, well, which franchises really went off the rails? All right, so before we start, I have some ground rules, okay? Rule number one: in order to be eligible, there has to be at least 3 movies in the franchise. Rule number two: the series has to have had significant highs in the beginning in order to be eligible. We can't have, well, the first 5 sucked, but Zombie Beach Bingo 7 was a masterpiece. Rule number three: a franchise can drop down and bounce back and still be on this list, which leads into the series has to have had a hard drop in quality. Elm Street, Halloween, Scream, they've all had drops in quality, but then they bounce back, or it's a gradual drop that doesn't really matter overall. Most importantly, I have to have seen every or at least 90% of this franchise in order for it to be eligible. It's got to be a real franchise. It can't be spiritual like Argento's Three Mothers or Fulci's Gates of Hell. It has to be one, two, three, four if eligible. So, with that in mind, we're going to kick it off with number 10. After 2 fantastic movies, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise dropped the ball. This one is kind of pushing the gradual drops because 1 and 2 were great, and then 3 was bland. It's really kind of forgettable. Number 4, The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is troubled to say the least. It's a mess. I hate it. I never want to see this movie again. I've seen it more times than I'd like to admit. But then we got the remake in 2003, and the remake is good. It's a polished version of the first movie, telling a different story but with the Leatherface character. We got the prequel of the remake, which was really good. And then we got Texas Chainsaw 3D, which I enjoy, but it's not a good movie. And then we got a prequel to that, which was not good. 2022 gave us Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Netflix's reboot, and it's a forgettable slasher. It is boring. It really misses the mark of what makes Texas Chainsaw Texas Chainsaw. Now, we've got a new one that's supposed to be coming out, and I'm on the fence, but the early buzz is that it's going to focus on the family, something that I feel like a lot of the sequels have really messed up. Leatherface is just the muscle. The scary part is the family. And if this can manage to do that, I'm cautiously hopeful about this. Until then, we have more bad than good with this franchise. Number 9. So, I feel like unless you were there in 1999, it's hard to really imagine how big the Blair Witch Project was. People swore it was real. People said it was the scariest movie ever made. There were mockumentaries done, books, video games, all these things to help sell that this was a real story, that this movie contained multiple real stories. And it really paid off for them. The movie was shot in 1997, had a shooting budget of like $60,000. By the time the movie came out, it had a budget of $750,000 just in marketing, and it ended up making $248.6 million. Artisan Entertainment picked up the rights, and they wanted a sequel immediately. They hired a director who was known for making documentaries, and that director said he didn't want to do what the first one did. Respect. He didn't want to leverage the fact that he makes movies about real events, so he wrote a script and he wanted it known that this is a fictionalized version of whatever they're trying to sell. However, in editing, the movie was cut to shit, and that's where the movie really suffers. It came out off of a $5 million budget. It made $44 million, and Artisan was fortunately smart enough to go, okay, we got away with this, but we might not get away with this again. 16 years later, Lionsgate has the rights. They shoot a film in secret and they release Blair Witch. But no one really cared or remembers it. It made money. It, again, made $44 million against a $5 million budget. But it's been widely forgotten. We're supposed to be getting a new one in 2027. I think Blumhouse is doing it, so Godspeed on that one. It's going to have to work really hard, though, to capture that minimalism and that magic that that first movie had. Number 8. Back in 2003, I was a wee lad. I had watched the last season of Buffy as it aired. That was kind of where I really got into it. And I loved me some Eliza Dushku. So, the summer of 2003, my dad and I would go every Wednesday to this theater in this college town that was like 30 minutes away. And the reason we would drive every Wednesday was because they would do 50-cent movies. And it was a second run theater in a mall. And so we saw a lot of movies that summer that were almost out to DVD. And they had a poster with Eliza Dushku on it. And I wanted to see Wrong Turn. And eventually I did. It was fine. It was a few years later. My dad bought the first one on DVD. He used to buy used DVDs constantly because, well, if I don't like it, it only cost me like $3. And so I finally sit down and I watch Wrong Turn, and it was fine. It didn't blow me away. By that point, I'd seen the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the fourth one, and so a lot of what Wrong Turn was doing felt very reminiscent of things I'd already seen. And then a couple years later, there's a direct-to-video sequel. A few more years go by. My dad ends up buying all of them that are out, and he's just going through them, and he's like, these are terrible. I'm like, then why do you keep buying them? I'm a completionist. I know the feeling. I sit down and I watch the second one, and it's actually good. Okay. It's not a good movie, but it's fun. I can give respect to the first one because it's a low budget movie. The design is kind of cool for the mountain men cannibals. I can have some fun with this. It's got a couple of really good kills. And the second one's fun. There's more of these. Let's go. Let's go. And then I watched the third one and went, the drop in quality between 2 and 3 is staggering. Oh, well, we have to keep doing these because these are making money. And they are. They're making enough money to justify doing more. But it's a case where you literally can see the studio going, just make another one and we'll make our money back. I don't care if it's good, just people will buy it. And after a while, it just becomes a slog to get through. Stick with the first two. Number 7. Look, I love Stephen King. My mom read a lot of him when I was growing up, and she got me reading him at a very young age. I was like 9, and she had me read Eyes of the Dragon. And then I saw the It miniseries, and when I didn't sleep for 2 days, my mom said, "Oh, well, that's not scary. Read the book. Read the book. You won't be scared of the movie anymore." To be fair, she was right. And one of the first movies that I got, my mom bought me Creepshow. Because I saw Creepshow when I was 10 or 11, I love anthologies. And this movie feels like it was way ahead of its time. I love comic books. I love comic book movies. This movie is based on the old ECW horror comics like Tales from the Crypt, and it wears that on its sleeve. It lets you know that this is a comic book movie, from the use of panels to signify edits to flipping pages in between stories to showing us the title of the story. And we get the Creeper, who is our host, but the Creeper doesn't talk. We just get an idea of him. And it is great. It is wonderful. What the fuck happened with the sequel? So the second movie comes out. The first movie has 5 stories in it. And I don't care for the crate. I know I'm on an island on that one. I think the crate is too long. But 5 stories. Creepshow 2 has 3. And they all go on a little too long and they're not really that interesting. But for all my problems with the second one, like them making the creeper talk, getting rid of the comic book aspect, so now everything is animated and it's weird. But despite all of those problems, it's better than Creepshow 3. Somehow this company got the rights to Creepshow and they made a sequel that had no budget. And instead of doing an anthology where, okay, here is story A, here is story B, here is story C, you still have stories. However, a character from story A will show up in story B and they cross over in that way. And they just kind of tell the story of a whole town rather than being really anthology like. It's not good. I've seen a couple episodes of the TV series and it was fine. I missed the comic book aspect, but again, I only think I saw like the first 3 episodes. The effects were great, the gore was great. Just I would have liked to see more. Go watch the first one. Number 6. Why do these franchises have to sink so low? What is it you wish? Pop, why are you what are you I what are you? Some sort of Wishmaster? That had 2 enjoyable movies and 2 garbage fires. Okay, so the first 2 Wishmasters aren't good movies, but they're fun. They're fun. The first one serves as like a horror's who's who, where Robert Englund is there, and Tony Todd is there. Kane Hodder is there as a security guard. I love Kane Hodder. And the second one is a lot of fun. It has one of my favorite kills of all time. Andrew Divoff is scene chewing, and he is so much fun as the Djinn. And he's not in the other 2 movies. The third or fourth movies have this weird thing where they've recast the Djinn with this actor, but the Djinn steals somebody's face And so he's a different person in 3 than he is in 4. In the third one, he's Sean Connery's son. And the fourth one is a guy that I only remember from One Tree Hill and How I Met Your Mother. They bring in angels and God for some reason, and they try to make the lore deeper than here is Genie. Genie bad. Genie steals souls. The first two have a lot of fun with the wordplay and how somebody's words are used against them. The third and fourth one are just. Number 5. Post Scream, studios wanted their own horror franchises. And if the 90s had their own Mount Rushmore, well, we'd have Ghostface, The Fisherman, and The Parka Killer from Urban Legend. Much like Wishmaster, Urban Legend is one of those movies that has, hey, it's that guy. We've got Danielle Harris, Robert Englund, that Noxzema girl, and Alicia Witt. The other half got famous afterwards, and they included the best Lex Luthor, Tara Reid, and the lead singer of 30 Seconds to Mars, who honestly should be in more movies. The idea of a serial killer who's killing people in the way of urban legends sets itself up for a lot of fun. And there's a whodunit here that when I first saw it, I didn't guess until 3/4 of the way through. Your mileage may vary, but it's enjoyable. The second one is a sequel that has a couple of returning characters, but doesn't set out to be, oh, yes, we're doing this exact same thing again. We need to bring back the hooded parka killer. We need to bring back the same outfit. We need to do this and this and this. The second one is set in a film school where our lead gets the idea of a serial killer using urban legends to kill their victims from a returning Reese from the first movie. And then there's a killer on the loose who's killing people in urban legend ways. And it's also a lot of fun. I like that they changed the costume completely, and it sets itself up for an awesome third one that is going to be what the hell direct to video. Okay, okay. The problem with Urban Legend 3 is that it shouldn't be Urban Legend 3. This feels more in line with the Prom Night franchise. We have the ghost of a girl who was murdered on prom night, who is killing bullies and jocks, and you have a teen girl who's trying to solve this whole murder mystery thing going on. All the kills have this supernatural twist to them, such as a girl goes to pop a pimple and a bunch of spiders come out. A boy is peeing on a fence and a switch flips and suddenly it's electric. But what makes this movie even more frustrating is who was behind the camera on this. This movie was directed by Mary Lambert, who directed Pet Sematary. This was written by Dan Harris and Michael Dougherty, who went on to write Trick or Treat and Krampus. What happened here? What the shit? Look, just watch the first two and forget that the third one even exists. Number 4. So look, if you thought, why did he only say 3 people when he was naming Mount Rushmore? Where's the fourth? Well, say his name. The first Candyman is fantastic. It's based on a short story by Clive Barker. It really takes its time and it beats its protagonist down before the end of the movie. Tony Todd is perfect as Candyman. He's haunting, he's scary, he's sexy, he's tragic. There's this whole thread in the movie that Helen may be the reincarnation of Candyman's past love, and there's so many ways to read this movie. It's about race, it's about power dynamics, it's about how a fact turns into a story and a story turns into a legend. And you know what we didn't need? We didn't need a sequel that involves Candyman in another city that involves the great great granddaughter of Candyman summoning him, and then things get incesty. I do like that we get more of his backstory. We get his real name, Daniel Robitaille, and we get to see some of the gaps. We get to see his murder by this mob and him being turned into the Candyman. It's not a good movie, but it's better than a sequel that came out a couple years later but takes place 30 years later. This time, Candyman's great-great-great-great-granddaughter summons him, things get very incesty, and it's... The third at least tries to bring back some of the racial commentary, but it's weird. It brings it up in a way that's like, yeah, it's hard to be black, but you know what else? It's hard to be Latino. And I realize that I am a white male talking about these things, but it's in the context of this story that it just doesn't really work. The Candyman franchise at least died a quiet death after that, and we never heard anybody call his name 5 times again. Okay, this movie got a lot of praise when it came out. It's notable that a black female director directed this movie, and she was the first to make a movie that grossed as much as it did. There are some interesting ideas. Problem is, when I see a Candyman movie, I want Daniel Robitaille. If you're doing a reboot, I understand, bring somebody else in to play this character. Part of the problem with this movie for me is the idea that every generation has their own Candyman. No, that defeats the purpose of him being a legend that people tell stories about, that he has this power because it is him. There are some great things in this movie. There are heartbreaking things about racial violence and the way things are in the world. God, I hate that things are the way they are. But to me, if your franchise is about an immortal ghost, that immortal ghost should not change who they are. I want to like this, but like part 3, it's really ham-fisted with its messaging, and ultimately, I'm just not that entertained. Stick to the first one only. Number 3! I'm sorry, Clive. I didn't intend for it to be this way. Clive Barker has 2 franchises. He's been a writer forever, but really he's only gotten 2 franchises. Candyman and The Box. Hellraiser is a franchise that should not be. The first one is fantastic. Yes, it's cheap. Yeah, some of the effects are a little wonky. But overall, I love it. It's not a movie that I expected. You see the poster, and you expect it to be all about Pinhead. And it's not. I watched the first one when I was 16, and I was instantly in love with Christy Cotton. Ashley Lawrence has not aged in 30 years, and I want to know who she's sacrificing goats to because, damn. So the movie is ultimately not really about Pinhead. Sorry, lead Cenobite. Or the Cenobites. They're there, but they're not really the focus. And Pinhead shows up for like 5 seconds at the beginning, and then he's not seen again for like an hour. This isn't about the Cenobites. This is about the people. That's where the sequels come in. The second one was made a year later, and it focuses more on the Cenobites, but it also has an interesting reason to bring back characters from the first one. We get Julia back, and she is full Disney villain. I love it. We get to see Hell. Hell is this labyrinth. It's unlike any hell that you've seen before. It's a lot of fun. And then the Weinsteins got involved, and... So originally Clive Barker wrote Hellraiser 3 to have Julia return, but Claire Higgins said she didn't want to do another one. So the script got rewritten, and the studio said, hey, what about that guy that's got the pins in his head that we keep putting on all the posters? Let's just make him the focus. And the series never recovered. The third one involves the spirit of Pinhead being split in 2 between a evil, monstrous side and a less evil version, and our hero has to unite his soul to save her own. At least we got a really great Ozzy/Motorhead song out of it. The fourth one has an interesting concept where we explore different time periods, and we get to see the creation of the box, and we follow the inventor's lineage throughout time. However, the movie was reshot and cut to hell, and its three time periods are an interesting idea. We get 1700s France, 1996 New York, and the place that every franchise will end up eventually. Space! Thank you, Tim. After that, the series went direct to video, and we enter the dark period. So, notoriously, it's up for debate how much the fifth one did this, but 6, 7, and 8 were made using scripts that were not Hellraiser related. The Weinsteins would take a script, take a writer and go, make this Hellraiser, put Pinhead into it, and then they would go shoot it like a week later in Bulgaria. Then we get the 9th and 10th movies that were only made to keep the rights with Dimension. They were literally shot over a weekend each time they did it. They were made with scripts that were intended to be Hellraiser movies, so at least they feel like Hellraiser, but that's the only praise I can give them. And then a couple years ago, we finally got a reboot on Hulu, and it feels a lot like those direct-to-video sequels that weren't meant to be Hellraiser movies. There's talk that we're going to get a TV series. Maybe we're going to get another theatrical movie. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. It seems unlikely. Just stick with the first two. Maybe check out 3 and 4. Number 2. I remember back in 2000, it was a big deal that it was the 25th anniversary. And my dad once described this franchise as a steep decline. He's not wrong. It's hard to call these hard drop-offs when the second movie is about half as good as the first, and the third is half as good as the second, and the fourth is half as good as the third. But when your first movie is as perfect as Jaws is... I've talked about the Jaws movies on this channel before. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on this. I have fun with the third movie. It's in no way a good movie. It ventures into so bad it's good cheese. The fourth is fun to see all the filmmaking mistakes that were left in the final cut. Check out the older videos if you want to see me go into more detail. Jaws is a perfect movie. Number 1! Okay, if number 2 was a movie as perfect as Jaws is, and its sequels are as bad as they are, then I can only imagine how bad number 1, The Exorcist. The Exorcist is a perfect movie. It's often considered the scariest movie ever made, and I cannot sing this movie's praises high enough. The sequels, though, it's hard to call them a mixed bag. The Exorcist 2 is often considered one of the worst movies ever made. It's well shot. I like the score. It has ideas, at least. They're not executed well. No joke, my last girlfriend and I sat down to watch it, and I'd seen it before, but it had been a couple of decades. And about every 5 minutes, she'd go, "What?" And I'd be sitting there going, just wait, it gets worse, it gets worse. I hear the third one is great. I have it. I've just never sat down and watched it. I know it gets a lot of praise, and one of these days I will watch it. The fourth one, I remember going to see in theaters, and it's a slog. The fifth one is really the fourth one. When they fired the original director of the fourth one, hired somebody else to come in and do reshoots, and it ultimately just kind of got released, and it's also a slog and boring to get through. This was an era where studios said, we can just do it with CG and nobody will know the difference. And the audience said, I did not see Exorcist Believer. I did meet the makeup artist, and he was fantastic. But I heard it was directed by David Gordon Green, and after sitting through the Halloween reboot trilogy, I went, I'm good. I don't need more. I know we're getting a Mike Flanagan one, and I'm on board as long as we do a basic reboot, don't do ties to the original movies, because part of what made that first movie so scary is that it was a normal family. It was a normal girl that this was happening to. I don't want a legacy. I don't want any of that. So, this was my list. What franchises went off the rails for you? Sound off below. Leave a comment and like, share, subscribe, hit the buttons to do the buttons with the buttons and the buttoning. And I'll see you again at some point when my ADHD actually lets me sit down and edit.